I think we found ourselves a clue.
Scooby-Doo, where are you? Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
Hello lords and ladies, welcome back to Scooby Month on Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. Last year I so desperately wanted to include a review of a Scooby-Doo video game for Scooby Month, but time ran out due to the difficulty I had playing one of the game's levels. This year I decided to make up for last year's blunder, and I will be reviewing Scooby-Doo Classic Creep Capers for the Game Boy Color, developed by Digital Eclipse Software. Another version of this game was released on the Nintendo 64, as well as being planned for a PS1 release until it was cancelled. Due to the limitations of the hardware, the Game Boy Color version differs heavily from its Nintendo 64 counterpart. Whereas the console version features you controlling the gang through multiple levels based on episodes from the TV series, the handheld is restricted to just one, and it's based on the episode Nowhere to Hide. The game is your standard point-and-click adventure game, where you'll swap between various characters, such as Scooby and Shaggy, Velma, Fred, and Daphne, as you collect items you need to use to solve puzzles and find clues. Unfortunately, it's never always clear which character you need to use at first, other than subtle hints such as this part where you're told Velma may know the meaning behind the symbols. Eventually, the gang is further split up and rendered absolutely useless, with Daphne being kidnapped, Fred being locked up, and Velma losing her glasses. For the remainder of the game, you'll control just Scooby and Shaggy. I can't say I wasn't a little bit disappointed that you don't make further use of the rest of the characters. Sure, they do get rescued by the final chapter and help catch the ghost of Hyde, but it's still sad the game sidelines them early on. I'm sure there could have been some puzzles that required multiple characters. There were also a few times where I was left scratching my head at how to proceed, a common aspect of these types of games. I'm not opposed to a little challenge every now and then, but a few puzzles were far too obtuse for me. One example is the doors you enter in this lab. They're randomized and require a specific set of patterns to figure out. I needed a walkthrough to recall that Jekyll's nephew had those numbers, and not just a few numbers, but a ton. You have to enter his room multiple times and write them all down, and even then, I wasn't sure how to use them correctly. Maybe I'm just dense, but it took some time before I realized the numbers matched up with when you entered a door, not when you also exited one. But it took a long amount of trial and error to figure that out. There were a few more moments like this sprinkled throughout the game, but nothing uncommon to these types of games. The doors were just the ones I felt were too unfair, especially with over 7 different combinations. You may have noticed the game takes a lot of liberties when it comes to the episode story when I brought up his nephew. Yes, the game adds a lot of new elements to the story. The aforementioned nephew, a lab filled with Shaggy robots, and Jekyll performing weird experiments. Like, beyond weird. At one point he captures Daphne so he can try out a beauty experiment on her. His robots were previously powered by cheese, and he also tried to invent a horseless carriage. As in a car. As in something that already exists. I understand that the source material wasn't exactly ripe with a lot of parts to make a full game of, but some things added didn't really make too much sense. Much like the episode, the gang suspect that the maid Helga is the real ghost. Unlike the episode, Daphne witnesses Jekyll kidnapping her for his experiments, so I don't get why the gang still suspect her all the way to the very end of the game. It's kinda dumb. Plus, Jekyll has another scientist with him. What happened to him? He got his DNA swapped with a cow's. I have to imagine his life is a living hell right now. Other than that, I must say the game is still pretty fun, a lot more fun than the previous game I played on the SNES, and that's probably because there's no scare meter that operates as a health bar, unlike the N64 version, which does. So you're free to explore at your own pace, and that's just really nice. If you have a Game Boy Color or even a Game Boy Advance lying around, I actually do recommend you play this game. You might have some fun with it. Now, have you played this game as a kid? If you did, what was your experience with it? Let me know down below. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon. Each tier nets you 1 extra entry into the Scooby-Doo giveaway I'll be doing at the end of this month. Thanks for watching, and take care. Hello, lords and ladies. Welcome back to Scooby Month on Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon. The final game I'll be covering for Scooby Month is Scooby-Doo Night of 100 Frights, a PS2 game developed by Heavy Iron Studios and published by the now defunct THQ. In it, you get to control Scooby-Doo as you headbutt, butt smash, and platform your way through a multitude of levels based on, or at least slightly influenced by, classic Scooby-Doo episodes, complete with a host of familiar Scooby-Doo foes. After the gang go missing upon arriving at Mystic Manor at the request of Daphne's friend Holly, Scooby-Doo must explore the various locales, solving puzzles, avoiding foes, and collecting all the Scooby Snacks. In this game, these are extremely important, so don't let how many of them there are fool you. If you so much as miss a single box or snack, you could be backtracking through early levels when you need them to unlock snack cakes. So, get it into your head right now so you don't screw up like I did and spend 2 actual in-game hours tracking them down. Collect as many as you can. You also can collect monster tokens, which I believe unlock the monsters in the monster gallery so you can view their info. Throughout the game, you can also gain additional power-ups. Yes, Scooby-Doo does get power-ups. At first, you can't do much in the game, and you must avoid the monsters by either running away or jumping over them. However, eventually you will unlock a helmet that lets you headbutt enemies, activate switches, etc. Then there are springs that let you double jump, an umbrella to help you glide or levitate on top of fans, gum to temporarily stick enemies in their tracks, and finally, a soap bubble dispenser. This will let you jump on enemies to reach higher levels. There are also some abilities that let you sneak past foes, such as a lampshade or a suit of armor, but unfortunately, there aren't a lot of spots in the game that make use of this skill, so I never really used it that much. Now, as silly as some of these power-ups are, they're called inventions by their wacky creator, they are a godsend compared to what you have to work with in previous Scooby-Doo games, where you're essentially helpless to fight back. They give you multiple ways to tackle foes, some of which require a certain method or two to defeat them, like the Charlie robots in the later levels. To defeat them, you must first ram into them, then stomp on them. Otherwise, they'll take lives away from you, which is called courage in this game, and is gained by eating food you find. There are a lot of monsters in this game, and at first I thought it was padding. You know how classic Creep Capers had to fidget with the episode's plot to make it a full game's length? That's what I assumed was happening here. Several monsters from Scooby-Doo would appear in droves in Night of 100 Frights. You'd run into dozens of creepers, werewolves, zombies, and more. But by the end of the game, it is revealed why this is. I won't spoil that for you, but it actually makes sense, and it made me okay with the way they did it. And it's really cool to see which monsters made it into the game and what levels are at. Oh, and Don Knotts is in the game. So cool. Now, graphics-wise, the game has not aged all too well, even for a cartoony-styled game. The characters' face movements are really funny to watch sometimes, but even then, it is still cool to see classic moments taken from the show and implanted into the game, even if most of those are kind of the opening to the game, not in the game themselves. Another neat element is the chase music. Yeah, during every boss fight, there's a unique song that plays. It really gets you pumped up to beat the boss when it starts playing, though as the bosses become harder, you probably won't even pay much attention to it. As for bosses, you'll get to face the Black Knight, the Green Ghost, and the Ghost of Redbeard. It actually does take some amount of strategy to defeat them, though it'll mostly involve either ramming a switch, bashing a switch while working with Daphne, or using the foe's attacks against them. Trust me though, all 3 of them will have you foaming at the mouth. Now that I've explained the mechanics of the game, let's start getting into my opinion on it, which is, I kinda hate it. Don't get me wrong, the game starts off really well. It's not too difficult, there's some challenge, but at some point into the game, maybe the final third, it just ramps up in difficulty. I'm not even kidding, it's insanely hard. The biggest problem with the game is the platforming. The developers expect you to make these terribly precise jumps, and you just can't do that in freaking 3D space. Especially not in an old title such as this. more than a few times, I misjudged how close or far a platform was to me and fell to my death. Look at this chandelier. How close do you think that is? Oops, fell to my death. That's what I'm talking about. Early on, this doesn't really matter, and it's easy enough to recover, but by the final leg of the game, they want you to make even more precise jumps, whether from rotating boards, moving lamps, or sails. It's idiotic, and very easily taints my fun experience in the first 2/3 of the game. Another issue that I had is how Scooby moves. Some enemies, you need to ram them and bounce on them, or vice versa. But Scooby doesn't just automatically turn to face where you need him to after you've, say, bounced on an enemy's head. No, he actually rotates, which takes up very precious time you need to land, face the enemy again, and ram them. This is no more apparent than with the final boss, Mastermind. After dealing with wave after wave of enemies, some of the hardest ones in the game since you have to either bounce on them first, or vice versa, you need to butt smash him, then try to ram him into electricity, which is near impossible considering there are 2 Charlie robots with him. So even if you happen to smash him, they will more than likely damage you as you attempt to freaking turn Scooby around in time to ram Mastermind, who will at this point already be standing up and will probably also damage you. So you need to take the foes out first, but he'll just summon more. So you have to somehow smash him and ram him several times while avoiding those freaking robots. Good freaking luck. Look, the game's not all bad. Maybe I'm just really bad at it. Though the game's level, design, and difficulty can't be completely excused here. It did not have to ramp up this drastically, and the boss battles could have been tweaked, along with the general movement of Scoob. However, another nice thing I have to say is that it really does recreate a typical Scooby-Doo episode. Sure, there's a lot more to it since you're in a video game, but that's just freaking cool to play through. You have all these really unique environments to run around in, such as the mansion itself, a fishing village, factories, caves, graveyards, etc. And collecting the snacks can feel really rewarding, especially if you get the monster tokens too. Like I said, I had a lot of fun with this game before it became idiotically hard. Though another complaint that I have is that, unlike the previous game I covered for Scooby Month, there's little if any clue collecting. Scooby-Doo merely moves from one area to the next, sometimes encountering some of the gang who reflect briefly on what's going on before either being kidnapped or disappearing again. So I wish that had been more of an element in the game. It gets even more annoying when the gang explain the motivation of Mastermind in the end, and they actually recount clues you didn't see in the game yourself. Like, really? Come on, why couldn't I have had a hand in figuring out who it was? Not that it was particularly hard to see who it was a mile away, but still. Now that I mention that, there's a simple twist at the end regarding the bad guy's identity. While it's nothing groundbreaking or revolutionary, I did appreciate that it wasn't as cut and dry as it almost appeared to be. In conclusion, I've come to the same opinion on this game as other reviewers did back when it first came out. It's a fun, but very flawed game that delivers on certain aspects of what Scooby-Doo fans wanted in a game, but doesn't fully reach that lofty goal thanks to some janky controls, camera angles, and a harsh difficulty spike that had me literally wanting to kill myself. In the end, I think I would still recommend you play this. Just do it on an emulator so that you have save states. It won't be nearly as frustrating then. That's all from me. Did you play this game as a kid? How did you like it? Did you ever beat it? Let me know down below, and I'll see you soon for the conclusion of Scooby Month 2018. Thanks for watching, and take care.
Scooby-Dooby-Doo, here are you. You're ready and you're willing. If we can count on you, Scooby-Doo, I know you'll catch that feeling.
and ladies, welcome back to Cartoon Hangout, your place for all things cartoon, and for the month of February and beyond, also your place for everything Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Doo Mystery Cases is a mobile game for both iOS and Android. It's a hidden objects game where each level requires you to find a specific number of objects before the clock runs down, with each room looking like something Marie Kondo has her work cut out for her. The game does switch things up every so often by having you put puzzle pieces together, remember which room a character just went into, help Scooby make a sandwich, or prevent Shaggy and Scooby from eating smelly boots for some reason. Who exactly is managing that conveyor belt? The gameplay is really simple, but these little mini games help make things a little more challenging, especially the ones where you have to shine a flashlight on the objects in a dark room before you can touch them. Almost every single time this level popped up, I had to redo it because I could not find all the objects in time. The game also gives you stars for completing various challenges per level, like not using hints or completing the challenge within a certain time limit. Getting these stars is very important, as another feature of the game is Scooby Snacks. These function as the pseudo-currency of the video game and let you buy clothing for the Scooby Gang. These are not just cosmetic, however. The clothes come in two styles, regular and gold. Golden versions of the clothes grant you perks, such as extra time, extra hints, or increasing how many Scooby Snacks you get after a level. And sometimes to get a star, you need to be wearing a specific item when you complete the level. Don't worry about deciding who needs to wear it, as it doesn't matter. What does matter is that each character can only wear 2 items at a time. That limitation can be a bit annoying if, like me, you really wanted to wear some of the later costumes you can unlock, such as the Batman costumes the gang wear in Batman the Brave and the Bold, but don't want to sacrifice the extra perks. Mystery Cases has, of the time of this review, levels based around 5 of the Scooby-Doo direct-to-video movies, those being Can't Scare, Legend of the Phantasaur, Shaggy Showdown, Brave and the Bold, and Gourmet Ghost, with promise of more content on the way, so they could adapt Curse of the 13 Ghosts at some point. Now, as far as story is involved, don't expect anything remotely in-depth. I mean, in-depth for a piece of Scooby-Doo media. For a mobile game, it does an adequate job of trying to take each movie and make it work within the frames of a mobile hidden object game. Before and after certain levels, you'll get dialogue from the characters, but don't expect much in the way of voice acting. The characters will blurt out lines from time to time, but never the ones on screen. At the very least, the game does make it fun to actually be involved in trapping the ghost or monster. Level 14 of each mystery involves you memorizing where Fred needs each object for the trap to go, and then putting it there. It's simple, but oddly satisfying. One thing that could wear on you is how many times you need to replay levels. If you're just going for all 3 stars for a level, as long as you complete each challenge, then you're free to move on to the next one. But after you get 3 stars in a level, you unlock Scooby Box Mode. It's not challenging, mind you, as all you have to do is click on the objects until the box is found. No time limit, no fuss. But then there's the puzzle levels. To get all 3 stars, you need to replay the puzzle 3 times, and then a 4th time for Scooby Box Mode. The only thing that changes in these levels is how small the pieces get. These really began to annoy me later into the game, but early on, I guess I managed to power through on sheer excitement. Now, there is one other mystery besides the ones I just outlined. Well, to call it a mystery is a bit of a lie. See, it's an Imaginext themed event. There is no mystery. There's 3 levels, all comprised of the easy puzzle levels from the main game. And the images you form? Toys. From Imaginext's Scooby-Doo line. Basically, it's a giant freaking advertisement for the toy company. No story to even try to make you think any more thought went into the event other than, kids, look at these toys you can make your parents buy you. The one plus, though, is the event does let you earn a second currency, Scooby dog tags, I think. You can earn these dog tags in any of the past mysteries, so it could be argued you should complete this event first, then go back and do the other ones. And then you can go and buy the exclusive costumes based on monsters from the TV series, which makes some of the cutscenes in the game funny when you see Velma with a mask of Mr. Hyde on. All in all, I'm not quite sure if I can recommend this game to anyone that isn't a huge fan of Scooby-Doo or hidden object games. Other than going back to 100% everything, there seems to be no replay value other than there being different objects to find in each room. The one caveat to this is there is supposed to be new content coming out, so at least Mystery Cases has that going for it. In the end, I had way too much fun with this game than I really should have, and I quote-unquote completed it in about, give or take, 4 or 5 hours in one sitting. Yes, I'm a nerd. I already knew that. There was just this certain charm to the game, and even though the gameplay became a little bit tedious by the end, I had a blast. And there you have it. Sorry this month has really been lackluster when it comes to Scooby-Doo content. I hope this video begins to make up for it. In other news, I've got some Scooby Month merch that will be going away soon. So go down to the description, follow the link to my Spreadshirt store, and make sure to snag you some before it's gone. Thanks for watching, and take care.